Jets fans got to see Tyrod Taylor in action today. He threw a very nice touchdown to Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin. Rookie minicamp is underway. How will some of these rookies fit in with the New York Jets? I don't know. My guest is ESPN's Rich Cimini. Let's roll.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Here we are. Tuesday evening, like I said, Tyrod Taylor got to throw a little today. My opinion, he looked really good from the clips I saw all on Twitter. But let's bring on my guest. ESPN's Rich Cimini joins the show. Rich, how you doing today?
Hey Connor, I love that intro. By the way,
Thank you. I
your
appreciate it.
little highlight reel is pretty hot. I like it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Really appreciate you joining me. As you know, obviously draft is wrapped up. All those mock drafts are officially out of the way, and we know
Thank
what
goodness.
happened. Yep. Jets draft, most notably Olu Fashanu and Malachi Corley. Two picks I really liked. I was really pleased with Joe Douglas's performance in the 2024 NFL draft. But let's dive right into where we are right now, kind of rookie minicamp. The Jets have signed a lot of these undrafted free agents. First, I want to get your initial opinion on guys like Olu Fashanu, Malachi Corley. Obviously, Malachi Corley, there's a lot of buzz around the Yak King, how he's not gonna go down, and I think he's gonna fit in really nice with this offense. So, what are your thoughts on Corley and Fashanu?
Well, I thought they were two good picks, and I think they fit some needs for the Jets. Fashanu and Corley, and all the rookies for that matter, the draft picks, they didn't really do anything over the weekend at the rookie camp. I was out there on Saturday, kept a close eye on those guys. And what Robert Saleh typically does, he'll separate the draft picks from the undrafted guys and the tryout guys. And he doesn't want to get his draft picks hurt. So I kept Fashanu was very, very limited. He really didn't do anything because he's got a quadriceps injury from the scouting combine, which occurred during his 40-yard dash. And so I really didn't see Olu do anything other than some light calisthenics. And Corley was off to the side, saw him moving around. One thing I will say about Corley is that he's a well-built wide receiver. I mean, I can see why early in his college career at Western Kentucky, he's actually started out as a running back, and I could totally see that. He's really cut nicely. He's got a good build, strong guy. You can see why they call him the Yak King. And I thought it was a good pick for the Jets. I mean, he's going to play right away. I think he'll probably, of all the draft picks and all the undrafted guys, he's probably the guy I would say would make the earliest contribution.
Yeah, obviously Brock Bowers was a name that a lot of Jets fans were talking about leading up to the draft. Personally, I really liked the Fashanu pick. I thought, unfortunately, Odunze wasn't there. If Odunze was there, he would have been my clear-cut favorite. The Jets need to select him right away. But Fashanu I really like. Obviously a name that everyone was talking about as soon as Jet fans started talking draft, which is very early, a name around the Senior Bowl. Same with Malachi Corley. When fans started talking about 72, Malachi Corley was a name that came to mind. But out of like the day three guys, a guy like a Jordan Travis, a Braylon Allen, what do you think was the biggest steal out of the draft for the New York Jets?
Well, Jordan Travis, I wouldn't classify him as a steal. He's really more of a developmental player right now. Obviously, he's injured. He had that horrific leg injury from last November in college, ended his college career. So the Jets are going to take a very long, they're going to play the long game with him. I mean, there's no rush to get him back. He's not going to play this year. He's just sit around and basically be a sponge and learn from Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. And so they say he'll be ready for training camp. Who knows? Well, they say he will be. I don't know about that. He really didn't do much of anything at rookie camp over the weekend, just riding a stationary bike. He said on Friday he tried to sneak into the team stretching drills, but the trainers pulled him out. They wouldn't let him do that. So he's got a little ways to go, but I think he's a long-term, 2-3 year down the road type of pick. I think probably the best pick I think that will help them the most out of the day 3 picks is Braylon Allen, the running back from Wisconsin. They got him at the bottom of the 4th round. He was he was trending toward being a pretty high draft pick after his first 2 years at Wisconsin. He rushed for 1,200 yards a year, and then his production dipped last year down to 900 something yards rushing. I think a lot of that was due to they changed the offense. They went to more of a spread offense. He was used to a pro style offense. And so I think the Jets may have got a good value there. I think he'll end up being Breece Hall's backup. I think he's going to leapfrog Izzy Abanikanda. And by the time all is said and done, I think he'll be the RB2 for the Jets.
Yeah, so in terms of Allen, I 100% agree with you. I think he will beat out Izzy. And then the Jets obviously drafted another running back, Isaiah Davis. Isaiah Davis.
Yeah.
So how do you see Izzy being a part of this offense? Do you think he's going to play at all, really, in 2024?
Well, I think the message is very clear to Izzy. When they draft two guys at your position, that is a very clear and obvious message that he needs to step up his game. Now, Izzy is different from those two guys. Izzy's just pure speed. He is a speed guy, more of a finesse guy. These two guys, Allen and Davis, are more of a rugged type back, a bigger type back. And the key here, pass protection and special teams. Izzy Abanikanda could not be trusted in pass protection, blitz pickups and so forth. And that's really why he didn't get on the field much last year. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis will block. And they will cover kicks on special teams, something Izzy didn't do. So I think ultimately Izzy could be in a race for his roster spot this year.
Wow. So you think I think it would be, could you see the Jets carrying 4 running backs for 2024?
Connor, that's a really good question. Probably it's way, way too early to tell. They are extreme. All I know is their top 4 running backs are 23 and under, which is pretty amazing how young they are. Maybe they pick up a veteran at some point, to bring in there someone who's a little bit more reliable. That's why I was actually surprised that Joe Douglas drafted 2 running backs. I thought that was a bit of a stretch to get 2, where they had other positions of need. But it'll be a good competition. It's really hard to, say who's going to be the odd man out. But they're very young there for sure.
Yeah, very young. I mean, Braylon Allen, I think, is the first NFL player to be born in 2004, and obviously a lot of Jets fans saw that statistic. I believe Aaron Rodgers was drafted a month and a half after Braylon Allen was born, and now they are playing on the same NFL team. So that just goes to show how young these players are and how much younger the NFL has gotten. But going back to Malachi Corley,
I can't wait to ask Aaron Rodgers that question, by the way. How's it feel to have a guy, who was basically an infant, when you were drafted into the NFL?
He's going to give you some hilarious response, I'm sure, if you ever.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But going back to Malachi Corley, obviously the Jets traded up into the top of the 3rd round to go get Corley. Where do you see him falling on this depth chart? Obviously, you said you think he can contribute the most out of anyone in this draft class right away. Where do you see him? Do you see him wide receiver 3, 4? Where do you see him landing?
Well, I posted a depth chart yesterday, and I had him as my week 1 projection as a starting receiver for the Jets. Look, it's not the deepest position for the Jets right now. I mean, obviously Garrett Wilson is your number 1 guy. Mike Williams probably be your number 2 guy. We're assuming he'll be ready by the regular season. He's, as everybody knows, is going through some ACL rehab. And then who's your 3rd guy? I don't know. Who's your slot guy? I think Corley will end up being a good slot guy. I don't think he's going to be an every down receiver. From the scouts and the people I talk to, he's got a little ways to go in terms of expanding his route tree and becoming more of a polished route runner. So I think early on, that's going to prevent him from being an every down receiver, but he can do things out of the slots that some of the other guys can't do. And that's if you can get the ball in his hands quickly, either behind the line of scrimmage or something, like a drag route or something like get the ball into his hands quickly. He'll do something with it, hence the nickname Yak King. So I think that as I'm going to quote Robert Saleh here, he calls it, a superpower. I think that superpower will enable to get Corley on the field probably more than Xavier Gibson. The coaching staff loves Xavier Gibson. I didn't see it last year. I mean, other than his amazing punt return in the opener, as a receiver, statistically, he was one of the lower ranked receivers in the league. So I think he's got some growing to do.
Yeah, obviously Gibson had that great week one where he scored that game-winning touchdown, and that was just Jet fans were crazy. But if you really paid attention to his special teams production, it was not incredible. And I definitely think he can improve from that. But staying on the topic of special teams, obviously the Jets lost Justin Hardy this year. Who do you see taking over that role? Obviously the Jets have Brendan Eccles, who I've noticed has been in some legal trouble lately. Could you see him being maybe that guy who takes over Hardy's role on special teams?
And Irv Charles too. I think
Yeah.
he's a guy you definitely have to look out for. And unfortunately for Justin, Justin is one of the best special teamers in the league, and I think the price point was a little high for the Jets. And even though he signed, I think for less than $2 million with Cleveland, you'd probably know that more better than I do. But I know he was happy to go back home to Cleveland. He grew up in Cleveland. And but it's unfortunate. He was a captain. He was a real leader on the special team. So they lose something there. But they're getting a younger guy, a cheaper guy like Irv Charles. When Irv Charles had to play last year, when Hardy got hurt, I think with the first punt he covered against Denver,
Forced a fumble.
he forced a fumble, and I don't know if he may have recovered it or someone else did. But so as a gunner, I think you're going to see a lot of Irv Charles and probably Brandon Eccles.
Yeah, I believe Irv Charles forced the fumble. Sam Eguavoen recovered the fumble, and
You're amazing, Connor. You have a better memory than I do on some of this stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But staying with special teams, just going over kickoff. Obviously, there was a rule change in terms of where players are lining up now in the formation off kickoffs. Do you think the Jets have the right return man for this? And what impact do you think it'll have on the Jets? Obviously, I saw they signed a undrafted free agent kick return from an HBCU, I believe.
Yes, you're right on that, from North Carolina Central. And yeah, I think the kickoff rule is going to have a pretty dramatic effect on games. I mean, because essentially the kickoff became a ridiculous waste of time. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
it was 75 to 80% chance it was going to be a touchback. And it really eliminated one dimension of the game that I think is a really exciting dimension. Once upon a time, probably before you were born, the Jets were an incredible kickoff return team, with guys like Chad Morton and Justin Miller, and then the late Joe McKnight, who was electric on kickoff returns, and under Mike Westhoff, the special teams coach. But lately, it's been just a formality play in the league. I think you're going to see, obviously, returns. I think the teams are trying to decide what kind of returner are they looking for? Are they going to look for more of a guy with a punt return skill set, or more of a guy with straight line speed, like a kickoff returner who is just basically get it, boom, go? Punt returner, you need a little bit more agility, to cut in and out of traffic. I think on the coverage teams, you're going to see some bigger players than you would normally because it's a shorter distance to run. Bigger players who can tackle, so linebackers, tight ends, safeties. I think they'll be more involved. It's going to be a fascinating play. I think a lot of special teams coaches are studying XFL tape right now and seeing how they did it last year with this particular kickoff rule. It's going to have a dramatic impact.
Yeah, so now obviously the Jets signed the kick return guy from Central North Carolina. Do you see Xavier Gibson returning kickoffs and punts next year?
Oh, Connor, I'd be
Early,
guessing
yeah.
on that at this point. I mean, he did it a lot last year. I know they tried Izzy a little bit. Izzy should be good at it because of his skill set, because he's just got tremendous straight ahead speed. But he wasn't last year. In fact, in one game, I think it was the Cleveland game, he inadvertently raised his hand to have a fair catch, and everyone stopped blocking for him, and he ran it back, and he got murdered by Cleveland because no one was blocking for him. So I think that position is wide open. Let me put it that way. It's a really hard position to handicap. I'm just going to say it's probably going to be wide open right now.
Yeah, I remember. There was a point where Xavier Gibson got hurt. I think it might have been in the Falcons game, and the DJ Reed came in to return the punt. He didn't have to return it because the kick went out of bounds. But I found that really interesting. So yeah, I do agree. I think that spot's wide open. But one more question before we let you go. Obviously, like I mentioned, the Jets have been very active on the undrafted free agent market, and the name that the Jets signed and caught fans' eyes right away as a guy who can come in and make an impact as an undrafted free agent is defensive end Leonard Taylor. So what are your thoughts on the skill set that he could bring to the table for the New York Jets?
Really interesting guy. I think a lot of people thought he might be drafted in the fourth or fifth round. He was a five-star recruit coming out of high school. I mean, he was one of the most highly recruited players in the country when he signed with Miami. And, in 2022, he had a really good year with Miami. I think he had maybe 10 and a half or 9.5 tackles for loss. For an interior lineman, that's really good. And he was trending upward. And then this past season, his production just slipped. So I don't know if it was an injury. There's some questions about, his motor. Does he play hard on every play? And obviously, a lot of teams, or every team, didn't think he was worth drafting. And the Jets went out and got him as a priority free agent. So I think he's got a shot, if he shows up and he plays the way he did 2 years ago. Because let's face it, defensive tackle is not the deepest position for the Jets. I mean, after Quinnen Williams, Solomon Thomas, they brought in Javon Kinlaw, who'll probably start. But after that, you got Lecky Fotu. And, it's kind of open after that. So if a guy like Leonard Taylor comes in and shows some stuff, we know the Jets will carry 10 defensive linemen. We've seen them do that before. So Leonard Taylor, I think he's got a really good opportunity. He's just got to decide. He just got to basically go and get it. That's what he has to do.
Yeah, I agree. As undrafted free agents, it's obviously you come in right away and the odds are stacked against you, is what Joe Douglas said to Xavier Gibson. I saw that on Hard Knocks when they called him into the room to congratulate him and tell him he's going to be a New York Jet. So, yeah, I think if he comes in right away and he makes an impact in training camp and he really catches Aaron White, Cotton, Jeff Olberg, Robert Saleh, he catches those eyes, I think he's going to make the roster. And I think it's more than making the roster. I think he has potential to really wreck the game for the New York Jets. Rich, I appreciate you joining me today. You got any final thoughts?
Well, I would say one final thought just on that particular
Mhm.
subject, Connor. The Jets have a pretty good reputation of finding these undrafted gems.
Yes.
I mean, we just saw
Bryce
Bryce
Huff.
Huff, for 4 years, develop into a really good player. Tony Adams is on the team now. And then you mentioned Gibson. A guy to watch out for, kind of my dark horse guy, is Jason Brownlee, who
Ooh.
made the team last year. I've been hearing good things about him. So you might see a nice jump from him. So the Jets do have a reputation for finding these guys, and so we'll see if Leonard Taylor or any of these guys have it, if they can make their mark. But thank you for having me,
Of
Connor.
course.
I always love to come on the program because I know you know what you're talking about. You
Thank
probably
you.
know more than I do, but appreciate it. Glad to see you back in action, and call
Thank you.
anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate you joining me. Everyone, thank you guys for watching. And as always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.